Welcome to Timeless Religious Stories, where faith, struggle, and divine moments come to life. New stories shared daily.
My name is Lila Cross. I'm 25 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. Or I did. I'm not sure what counts as living anymore. The room I remember most vividly in my apartment wasn't the kitchen, or the living room where I'd scroll TikTok until my pupils went dry. It was the bathroom, small, dimly lit, and always cold. I called it the still room, not because it was peaceful, but because it was silent in the wrong kind of way, like the air held its breath when I entered. That's where most of it happened. The empty rituals, the ones no one talks about in real terms. It always started the same. I'd light a candle, not for mood, but to feel like I wasn't alone. Lavender, usually. I'd sit on the closed lid of the toilet, listening to the building hum. Pipes, heaters, the shuffle of neighbors living above me. That sound became my anchor. It meant I was here, in the physical, in the world of bills and screens and traffic noise. I needed that. I needed something to pull me back. Because sometimes, I wasn't sure I was really here at all. When I was 13, I had my first out-of-body experience. No one believes me when I say that. They call it sleep paralysis, a dream, maybe a hallucination. But I was there, floating above my body, watching it twitch under the blanket like it was someone else's skin. And I heard something, not a voice exactly, but a sound that pierced through the veil of my consciousness. A vibration. It felt ancient, like it existed before language. Like the hum of the universe's lungs. That same sound would visit me again, during nights of loneliness, or when I got a little too comfortable being alone with my body. It's hard to describe what that kind of loneliness does. It's not sadness, it's hunger. And when you don't understand it, you feed it with whatever's easiest. Some drink, some binge. I chase sensation, not with people, just myself, because it felt safer. And in the beginning, it did feel safe. Private. No strings. No guilt. Until something started watching. It began as a presence. Nothing visible. Just a subtle shift in the air. A delay in my reflection. A breath that wasn't mine. My bathroom mirror would fog before I touched water. The candle flame would bend toward me like it was listening. I joked to my friend Sam that I had a ghost, and she laughed and said, "Portland apartments always come with trauma or spirits. Yours is probably just bored." But it wasn't boredom. It was attention. I started to feel it more strongly after those nights. It was like every time I sought that solitary pleasure, something opened. A door? A frequency? I don't know. But it left behind something sticky, like being watched by an eye that didn't blink. At first, I ignored it. Rationalized it. It's the heater. It's your nerves. It's anxiety. But deep down I knew. This wasn't psychological. It was spiritual. And something was very, very wrong. Then came the Thursday. It was just a normal evening. Rain tapping on the windows like a lullaby. I hadn't eaten much. I was tired, but restless, that specific kind of ache that lives in the belly and spreads up the spine. I lit the lavender candle. Closed the door, sat on the toilet seat and breathed. Everything felt thinner that night. Like the air had lost its weight. The walls didn't feel solid. The mirror was darker than usual, like it had depth. I don't know what came over me, but I stared into that mirror for longer than I ever had. Past my reflection. Past the bathroom behind me. I saw something shift. At first, I thought it was just my face, distorted from the flame maybe. But then the face in the mirror smiled. And I hadn't. I gasped, dropped the candle. It rolled into the corner and went out. Instant darkness. Then the sound came back. The vibration. Not peaceful this time. It was loud. Low. A bass frequency that rattled my bones and made my teeth hurt. It was inside me. Through me. Like I'd become a tuning fork for something unholy. And then silence. Total. Unforgiving. Eternal. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my bathroom anymore. I was somewhere else. Somewhere that shouldn't exist. They say in dreams, you forget details. Faces blur. Logic breaks. But this place, wherever I was, had perfect clarity. I stood barefoot on a cold, slate floor. The air didn't move. It was not hot, not cold, not anything. Just absent. Like the concept of temperature had never been invented there. In front of me stretched a long corridor, impossibly narrow and tall. The walls pulsed faintly, as if they were alive, breathing. Not human breath, but something older. Like stone exhaling after eons of silence. The strangest part? There were no shadows. No light source either. Everything was visible, not lit, but revealed. And then I heard it. Not a voice. Not footsteps. An echo. My own breath, repeating back at me, but wrong. Like a delayed imitation that grew more aware with every repetition. I took a step forward. The echo mimicked me. Another step. The echo returned. Then I spoke. Just one word. Hello. The corridor whispered it back. Hello. Hello. Low. Low. Until it turned into something else. Something that wasn't my voice at all. And it laughed. I should have been terrified. But I wasn't. Not yet. It was like being in a place too deep for fear, a place where even emotion had to wait at the door. I walked. Slowly. Carefully. Each step echoed like a drum in the void. The corridor began to narrow. The walls grew closer with every yard I moved, but I hadn't noticed until I grazed the side with my hand and felt it shudder. It was warm. Wet. Not stone. The corridor wasn't built. It was grown. And then I understood something that made my stomach turn. I was inside something. Or someone. I kept walking because there was nowhere else to go. That's what people don't understand about these kinds of experiences. It's not a dream. You don't get choices. You only move forward. The path unfolds not by logic, but by a kind of spiritual gravity. And mine was pulling me deeper. After what felt like hours or minutes, time had no spine here, I saw the first door. It wasn't a door in the normal sense. No hinges. No knob. Just an oval slit in the wall, tall and dark like the mouth of a cave. I hesitated. Then the vibration returned. Low, humming, seductive. Like it wanted me to go in. I stepped through. What I saw inside was not a vision. It was a truth. The room, if you could call it that, was circular. A mirror stood in the center, floating above the ground. It didn't reflect me. Instead, I saw 100 versions of myself. On my bed. On the bathroom floor. Back of a car. Dorm room at 19. Always alone. Always in the act of reaching for sensation. Always thinking I was safe, private, unobserved. But in every image, there was something else in the room with me. Not clearly visible. Just hints. A shadow. A shimmer. A crooked figure behind the curtain. Sometimes it stood beside me. Sometimes it mimicked me. Sometimes worse, it fed. The mirror pulsed with heat, and then I saw it. A shape with no eyes, just a face made of mouths. Smiling. Always smiling. It looked like something sculpted out of loneliness. Like it had been born from the thousands of hollow touches and heavy silences I'd called comfort. I backed away. My knees gave out. Then finally a voice clear, impossible, familiar. Not from the shape. From everywhere at once. You invited it. Again and again. You gave it access in exchange for silence. It mimicked pleasure. It taught you how to forget. I whispered, choking. What is it? The mirror fractured. And from behind me, not from the mirror, not from the shape, came the answer. An echo of Eden. A parody of what was meant to be union. The corridor began to rumble. The walls convulsed. The shape in the mirror opened its mouth wider. And I knew I had to run, but not away. Forward. There was more. Something, someone waiting at the end. I don't remember my feet touching the floor anymore. It was as if I had become motion itself, pulled, not propelled, through the corridor as it split and bent and descended into something far more ancient than space. The walls had long since stopped resembling anything human. They were roots or tendons or thoughts. I couldn't tell. There were no doors now. No echoes. Only a thrum beneath everything, the vibration. It had changed again. It wasn't seductive anymore. It was holy, terrible, beautiful, unbearable. The fear that had hidden under my ribs since I was a child began to rise. Not panic, not dread, but something deeper, like I was approaching the core of some eternal structure, and my soul wasn't meant to look directly at it. That's when I saw it. A veil, impossibly thin, stretched across an arch of living branches that pulsed with pale light. The veil shimmered like silk underwater, but I knew instantly what it was. It wasn't blocking me. It was protecting me. Beyond it, I saw the garden. And I wept. It wasn't Eden. Not literally. I don't think the human mind can grasp Eden the way it was. But this place, this echo of it, was enough to ruin me. Everything breathed. Light moved through leaves like it had intention. The soil itself sang a low note that vibrated in harmony with my bones. Trees grew in perfect patterns, and between them flowed a kind of invisible intelligence, a presence I could feel but not define. In the center stood a tree, not beautiful but true. That's the only word that fits. It was truth in bark and branch and fruit. Its roots pulsed with a frequency I recognized immediately. It was the same vibration that had always haunted me. The one I tried to imitate in my bathroom. The one I mistook for pleasure. The one the thing had corrupted. Only now did I hear its full song. It wasn't meant for isolation. It was meant for union. Not sexual. Not even romantic. Sacred. A reunion of soul and source. And then he was there. Not appearing. Not arriving. He had always been there. He didn't wear robes. He didn't glow. He wasn't floating. He stood beside the tree like he belonged to it, or perhaps, like it belonged to him. I couldn't see his face clearly. It shimmered like water, always in motion, but the weight of his presence was unbearable. Like the moment just before a storm breaks, stretched across all of time. He looked at me, and I remembered everything. Not from this life. From before. I fell to my knees. I wanted to speak, but all my thoughts had turned into ash. He raised a hand. You've been chasing echoes. His voice wasn't sound. It was recognition. Like it had been inside me all along, waiting for the silence between my screams. They mimic union, but offer nothing. They copy design but strip the spirit. I tried to speak. My voice broke. I thought it was harmless. I didn't know. I just wanted to feel something. He nodded. Not with judgment. With sorrow. Your body remembers Eden. Every human's does. But you've been taught to satisfy the ache without returning to me. The act isn't the corruption, he continued. The separation is. He showed me, not with images, but through experience, what happens when desire is removed from divine context. How loneliness becomes a ritual. How private moments turn into invitations not to me, but to them. Things that wait behind false sensations, offering hollow pleasure in place of holy intimacy. And I saw it. All of it. My loneliness had become a signal. I didn't know, I sobbed. No one ever told me. He stepped closer. Now you know. He extended his hand toward me. Come out of the still room. I reached forward. My fingers brushed the veil. And then, pain. Blinding. Like being torn out of a womb made of stars. I was falling upward and downward and inward all at once. Light. Sound. Blood. Oxygen. Alarms. Shouting. A woman's voice yelling my name. Lila. Stay with us. I opened my eyes to fluorescent lights and the sharp smell of antiseptic. A nurse hovered over me. Machines beeped. I was back. But nothing was the same. The lights in the ear felt like needles behind my eyes. Everything was too loud. Too bright. Too sharp. It was like being born through glass. A nurse adjusted something near my head and said my name 3 times before I could answer. My throat was sandpaper. My wrists were strapped with 4 lines. Someone had cut away my clothes. Lila, you overdosed. You were unconscious for several minutes. Can you hear me? I blinked. Nodded. But I couldn't answer out loud. Not because I didn't have the words. Because I didn't know which world I was in. They told me later. A neighbor had called 911 after hearing a metallic scream through the walls of my apartment. Not human. Not like a cry of pain. Like steel tearing. I hadn't taken any drugs. No alcohol, no pills, no substances of any kind. My blood was clean. But I had stopped breathing. Heart rate, undetectable for 87 seconds. Skin cold. Eyes open. Dilated. By all accounts, I had died. Briefly. And then I came back. They had no explanation. But I did. The hospital released me after 2 nights. No seizures. No neurological damage. Unexplained episode, the report said. They offered to refer me to a therapist. I nodded politely and threw the card away. I knew what I had seen. And I knew I could never tell anyone. Not the whole truth anyway. Not about the shape with the mouths. Not about the echo of Eden. Not about the presence. I went home. My apartment felt filthy. Not in the physical sense, but spiritually stained. The bathroom, the still room, pulsed with memory. I couldn't step inside. I taped the door shut. The mirror behind it felt alive. Watching. For weeks, I couldn't sleep through the night. Because the veil was thinner now. And I remembered everything. That's the thing they don't tell you about revelations. They don't come and go. They stay. They burn. I started hearing the vibration in everything, not just at night. In traffic lights, refrigerators, street lights. But now I could tell the difference. There were 2 tones. A one that called upward, subtle and slow, like light through leaves. And the other, sharp, hungry, mimicking the first. Every time I passed a screen, my phone, laptop, TV, I felt the second tone hum just beneath the glass. There was a hunger there. A watcher. A recruiter. It wasn't about lust. It was about imitation. Imitation of union. Imitation of creation. I started remembering the moments that had opened doors. And how often I'd mistaken loneliness for freedom. One night, I lit a candle again. Not in the bathroom. On my windowsill. This time, I didn't reach inward to numb. I reached upward to speak. Not with words. With silence. And there, in that quiet, I felt him again. Not as a vision. Not even as a presence. Just as order. As a realignment. Like my breath was being tuned back to the right frequency. I whispered. I saw you. And I heard, not audibly, but deeply. Then live like it. That was the beginning of the war. Not between me and the world. Between me and everything I used to call harmless. It didn't happen all at once. No thunder. No fire from heaven. No dramatic exorcism. Just a slow, silent war of attrition. Room by room. Habit by habit. Thought by thought. First, I unplugged the TV. Not out of fear, out of awareness. Then the mirror in the bathroom. I didn't just tape it. I broke it. 7 years of bad luck sounded safer than what was living behind it. I stopped sleeping with my phone in the room. Deleted accounts. Music playlists. Certain books. Not because they were bad, but because they carried echoes. Fragments of that tone. The imitation. I was learning to hear the difference. The worst part was the loneliness. Not physical loneliness, but spiritual withdrawal. The thing that had fed on me for years was gone now. And it had left a hollow space, like a socket where a parasite had curled. That space ached. Some nights, I could feel it pulling me back. Not as desire. Not as pleasure. But as invitation. A kind of false homecoming. Just once. Just a touch. You know how to silence the ache. And I would whisper back, through gritted teeth. You're not hunger. You're a habit. And I would let the ache burn through. One night, I woke at 3:33 a.m. The air was thick again. Like the moment before something. But this time I wasn't afraid. I walked barefoot to the bathroom. The mirror was gone. The light was off. I lit a single candle. Sat on the floor. And I spoke, not aloud, but with my entire being. I'm not yours anymore. That was when I heard them again. The mouths. Whispering from somewhere just beyond the walls. Hundreds of voices, all mine, from different years, different nights, laughing, weeping, moaning, bargaining. And behind them the shape. The echo. The parody of Eden. But now I wasn't a visitor. I was a witness. And I stood. I looked into the empty mirror frame. I looked into the space where it used to watch me. And I said his name. Not as fear. Not as magic. But as truth. Jesus. The vibration shattered. Not the house. Not the floor. But the hold. Like a thread that had wrapped itself around my spine and finally snapped. The whispering stopped. The mouths retreated. The imitation folded inward like a collapsing lung. And in that silence, I saw light. Not as a vision, but as presence. There were no words. Only a kind of interior flood, like a soul being filled, cleaned, claimed. It felt like fire and mercy had the same name. I slept that night. Deeply. Freely. Without a signal humming behind the glass. Weeks have passed. I haven't told anyone the full story. Not yet. But I've started writing it down, piece by piece. Like this. Not as a warning, but as a reminder. There are two vibrations in this world. And most of us have been taught to follow the wrong one. Because it's louder. Easier. Quicker to satisfy. But it will never unite. It only mimics what union was meant to be. I don't claim to be holy. I don't pretend to be cured. But I know this. The still room is not where you're alone. It's where you decide who gets invited in. And I don't light candles for silence anymore. I light them for him.